How did I end up here? Lying in your arms, watching city lights turn to stars.
Talking about EA in a positive light is an extremely rare thing to do, and I'm about to do just that. Well, not quite, because EA are only the publishers of Unravel, with Coldwood Interactive and Coldwood Interactive AB being the actual development studios behind it. But EA's name being on anything in any way more than often taints it from the get-go, but not this time around, unfortunately. Released in February 2016, the year where everything started going to crap, Unravel is a puzzle platforming game where you control this cute little yarn creature simply known as Yarny, as you venture through a variety of environments in search of these yarn badges, which unlock more of the story, both literally and figuratively, for you to most likely cry out when you get to the end. Yeah, it definitely has that kind of story feel to it, no pun intended. For the time I gave myself to play Unravel, I found it to be a very fun feel-good game. Again, no pun intended. See, the puzzle aspect of the game comes into play when you remember that Yarny is a single-stranded yarn pulled from a yarn ball, meaning it only has so much yarn to work with until you won't be able to move any longer. But don't fret, because along the way you'll find more balls of yarn to replenish your yarn supply. And other than puzzles being movement-based, kinda, a lot of them require experimentation with the physics of the game in order to solve them, making for some really interesting and most importantly, fun puzzles to solve. There's also the matter of the world you're in. See, you're just a tiny yarn creature exploring a big world, making otherwise everyday objects feel huge in comparison, and I absolutely love that kind of premise. Having said that, it makes me wonder if I'd enjoy the Pikmin series. I never did play any of those. Anyway, back to what I was saying. That premise of everything around you being bigger because of a different perspective is the kind of thing that would also work well in a horror setting, which might be a certain game later on that capitalizes on that. But that's for later. As for now, don't worry, Unravel is not some kind of subversive horror game where it draws you in at first and then hits you like a freight train halfway through. No, not at all. At least, I don't think it's so, anyway. No, I'm kidding. As I said, it's a wholesome feel-good game. Unravel is also a very beautiful game as well. Seriously, if you've just kind of been passively listening for the past few minutes, then look up and see what this game has to offer you. YouTube video compression will definitely mess with the visual flair a little, but even so, trust me when I say that this is a really pretty looking game. Altogether, Unravel is an amazing little indie game that Coldwood Interactive really poured their hearts into, and in the first 5 minutes of the game alone, you can really tell. First impressions this series may be about, but from them alone, Unravel is for sure a work of art. From one work of art to another form of art, has your dream job ever been to become a dog photographer? Well, if that's the case, then Pupperazzi is just the game for you. Released literally a month ago at the time of recording my audio here, developed by Sunday Month and published by Kit Fox Games, Pupperazzi is a game where you, well, take photos of dogs and yeah, that's about it really. Okay, well, not quite. Your main goal is to garner a large social media following and yeah, honestly I'm struggling here. Truth be told, I do love the idea of this game as a sort of very wholesome feel-good experience, more so than Unravel actually, and as something you can pick up and play when you need a little cheering up, you know. And yeah, it's a very cute experience, even pulling on my heartstrings slightly at just how carefree you are in this game. It's a life a lot of strive for, I think. Plus, again, in concept, taking pictures of dogs is exceptionally wholesome, especially with how polygonal all these dogs are, which just adds to the charm of the game I feel, because, you know, who doesn't like dogs? Well, story time here real quick. I actually used to be afraid of dogs for the longest time because of an incident as a child where I got chased by a fairly aggressively playful one. Fortunately, I wasn't hurt, but as you can imagine, it was a terrifying experience for me as a child. Nowadays, however, I love dogs. I don't own one myself, I'm more of a cat person in that regard, but nonetheless, I do love them now, especially huskies. I think they're beautiful. Sorry about that tangent there, but back to the subject at hand. With how casual of an experience Pupperazzi is and how it's aimed towards a very specific audience, a fairly niche one at that, it's kind of a hard sell, I will admit. Admittedly, unless for my love of new Pokemon Snap or for the existence of new save file, I probably wouldn't have played this game otherwise, but seeing as I have now, I'll be honest and say that I don't think my time was wasted. I much appreciate the wholesome experience, and hey, it's always there if I want something to unwind to or need cheering up, so hey, there's something. This game's a weird one, huh? First released in early access in April of 2019, on April 1st no less, later fully released in April 2021, again on April 1st, I love the commitment there. Tabs was developed and published by Landfall Games, and from the gameplay you're seeing in the background alone, you can already tell what kind of game Tabs is. If you've got no idea what you're looking at, however, which I can't say I really blame you. Tabs is supposed to be a parody of the battle simulator genre, a genre that includes games like itself, but it's also a strategy game, a genre that includes games like the Civilization series, Gears Tactics, and Rock of Ages. Yeah, something like that looks like this is a strategy game, would you believe it? And for the cherry on top of the cake, it also has ragdoll physics. Lovely. But anyway, in Tabs, your objective is to build a team, red, that will take down the enemy team, blue, in either the campaign or sandbox mode. The only difference between the two is that the sandbox mode has no monetary limit to how many or what units you can place, while the campaign obviously does have a monetary limit. So if you are playing the campaign mode, there is some thought you need to put into what units you think will best suit the current situation, hence the strategy part. If I'm recalling correctly, Tabs is the first game of its particular genre that I've played, the unit building type I mean. Unless you count Fire Emblem Heroes, but I don't know if I do or don't, so moving on. But despite my inexperience, I thought I was pretty okay at it, and I had a lot of fun with what I did play as well. Besides, even if I failed miserably, the game made me laugh with its over-the-top ragdoll physics. Whether it be my main getting decked to the face with a rock or seeing a mammoth tear through the opposition by just swinging itself about, Tabs was hugely entertaining for me for just how silly it was. Humor's subjective, I know that, but how can you not laugh at stuff like this? And you know, that's not to say that Tabs sells itself for the stupidity of the premise alone, because the strategy aspect of the game will keep you invested, I think, and there's definitely nothing wrong with something that gets you thinking, even if the hilarity is about to derail your train of thought. It's quite the enigma in that sense. It's like the devs are playing 5D psychological chess with us or something. Quite the tonal shift, huh? Little Nightmares is only the third horror game I'm talking about in this channel, the first being DDLC and the second being FNAF 1, and for someone like me who's very much into the horror genre, that's quite odd, wouldn't you say? Considering I own the Resident Evil 2 remake as well, it's even more strange. Sometime soon, hopefully. Anyway, developed by Tarsier Studios and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment, released in 2017, Little Nightmares is a puzzle platformer much like Unravel, just not. Very much not. If you didn't know or just weren't listening about 2 paragraphs ago, Little Nightmares is a horror game, and I alluded to it earlier, but essentially Unravel's premise of you being a small fish in a big pond is also the case here, used to its full effect to how you'd expect it to be in a horror setting. Okay, that's not all Little Nightmares has going for it, but it's what stuck out to me most while playing in how effective the environments were in making you feel small and helpless on a lot of occasions. And for someone like me, who is kind of a jaded horror fan, only really finding interest in psychological horror, I loved that feeling. Funny story actually, on the topic of psychological horror, the game Visage was at one point a shoo-in for this video, but that ended up getting replaced by Unravel when I suddenly lost interest in the idea of playing it. I don't know why exactly I lost interest, I kind of just did. And actually, Little Nightmares wasn't originally supposed to be here either. Instead, I was going to be talking about Untitled. But for whatever reason, the game just didn't want to start, no matter how many times I tried on my Xbox One, so yeah, I eventually replaced it with Little Nightmares. Gameplay wise, you're in control of this mysterious character known as Six, a close to starving little girl who must escape this place called the Moor. What is the Moor, you ask? Well, so here's the thing. I know the answer to that, and that's because I remember watching Markiplier's playthrough of it back when it first came out, so of course, I obviously know what's to come as well, but I don't think that matters. Even when I recognised the location, that was the problem. I recognised the location and knew it was about to follow. The fear of the unknown is probably the strongest fear out there, not knowing what to expect and what's to come and all. But if done right, a horror game can make you dread knowing what's coming next. And Little Nightmares, intentionally or not, does that super well. Sure, I went from watching it to then playing it a few years later, as opposed to this just being a second playthrough, but personally, I still found it terrifying. That might only be because I have a better understanding of what makes effective horror now, but nevertheless. I'm really glad I finally got to play Little Nightmares. I claimed it off gold maybe a year back or something, and I just didn't touch it. And when I finally got to it, I found it already started firing with my sisters on it, from when I lent her my Xbox once, so yeah, that was something. But regardless, I loved playing what I did of Little Nightmares. I've said it a few times with games that I featured in the series, but I really mean it this time. I can't wait to continue Little Nightmares when I get the chance next. I deliberately stayed vague with this one because, even though this is kind of hypocritical of me to say given what I've said about my history with Little Nightmares, I do think it's best if you experience it for yourself. Trust me when I say, Little Nightmares is well worth your time, and maybe one day I hope to give it a proper review. It'd only be the second horror game to receive that kind of treatment. This is the video of first, it seems, as this series should be about. The second and not the last roguelike game to appear in this series, wink wink, developed by Thomas Moonkang and published by Humble Bundle, released in March of 2020. One Step from Eden puts you in control of a number of characters, though at the beginning you can only choose from one character, and your objective is to make it all the way to this place called Eden. Some fabled place I don't really know, I didn't get that far. One Step from Eden, along with being a roguelike, is also an action and deck building game, making it my first deck building game. It plays similar to the Mega Man Battle Network series, and if that's the case, I need to go play that ASAP because One Step from Eden is so fun to play. Helped along by the roguelike philosophy that I explained with Spelunky 2 and New Safe L4, where I hope you'll succeed the next time around encourages you to continue on, the fast-paced, intense battle gameplay of Eden is dangerously addicting. A perfect concoction of addiction, really. Before a battle, you are given a chance to arrange your deck, getting to choose from a variety of cards that have a variety of effects, ranging from more head-on attacks that do immediate damage, or cards that push foes back to create space between you two, potentially affecting the course of the battle. And when you get into the battle, you aren't just standing still, waiting for your turn to choose a card. No, it's a lot more frantic than that, thankfully. Basically, you have to be on the move pretty much constantly, thinking about your position and considering the enemy's position in order to avoid their attacks and land your own. It can get pretty hectic at times, and I love it for that fact alone. I'll be honest, when it comes to actually building my deck, I'm kinda monkey brained about it, just going with what I think looks good and never really thinking about an actual strategy. But even so, I was still enjoying the hell out of it. Not to mention as well, I love the pixel art style of Eden. I think it looks really nice and it works for this type of game, being simplistic enough to not be too distracting and while you focus on other things, i.e. the gameplay. Of course, the art style is also a callback to Battle Network, so there's that as well. It's also got really good music too, honestly. I was stuck on a title screen just listening to the music for about 20 minutes or so for the first time I booted it up. I just got lost in it. And fun fact here, while doing some research for this, I found out that the name of the game, One Step from Eden, is apparently a reference to The World Ends With You, released in 2007, which Eden's theme and feel was also heavily influenced by. I never played The World Ends With You, the original nor the enhanced port for the Switch, but after hearing that, it's hard to say I'm not at least intrigued now. Oh yeah, front, I was kind of worried about playing Eden first, given how, from the screenshots alone, it suggested that it was just your average RTS deck building game, akin to something like Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories and Metal Gear Acid, games I haven't exactly heard glowing praises for, or even Yu-Gi-Oh, which I'm sorry, I just don't like. So having said that, I was pretty concerned, but obviously that concern turned out to be unwarranted because I ended up loving One Step from Eden. As the old adage goes, don't judge a book by its cover, and you know, that should just be the series tagline at this point. Oh yeah, we're finally talking about it. Well, I say that, but I briefly mentioned it in the Spelunky 2 segment, New Safe L4, but whatever. I told you One Step from Eden wouldn't be the last roguelike we'd be talking about in this video, but I guess if you saw the thumbnail, then you already knew what was coming next by process of elimination, but shush. So Hades is quite the title in the indie gaming industry. Developed and published by Supergiant Games, released in September 2020, Hades is an action RPG roguelike game, and it's one that's received glowing praise since its release, going on to earn multiple awards, including the Best and Indie and Best Action Game Awards at the Game Awards 2020, and right out of the gate, it deserves all of them. Excuse the profanity for a second here, but Hades is a fucking fantastic game. Once again, taking advantage of the roguelike philosophy and combining it with a fun and frantic hack-and-slash approach to combat, and once again, much like One Step from Eden, Hades is the perfect concoction of addiction. So in Hades, you take control of Zagreus. Yeah, that kinda sends you through a loop, but that being said, Zagreus is the son of Hades, and your objective is to escape the underworld and make it to Olympus. But it's sure no easy feat. Or it could be an easy feat. This is a roguelike after all, so you could end up having a really difficult time, or a really easy one. I'm sure an RNG element like this would be a turn away for most, not being able to plan ahead and whatnot, but to talk about it again, it's the type of RNG that makes for an interesting experience each time, encouraging you to continue on in hopes that you'll succeed the next time through, no matter how many tries it takes. It's replayability incarnate. Throughout your time playing, you may wander upon various gifts bestowed upon Zagreus from the gods of Olympus, the likes of which include Zeus, Aphrodite, Poseidon, Ares, Athena, and so on and so forth. And whose boon is bestowed upon you is, once again, down to RNG, but again, that's what makes Hades fun. One run you could be using the powers of Zeus with your abilities having added lightning strikes to them, or in another run, you can have the powers of Aphrodite, inflicting status like Weep, which reduces the damage that afflicted enemies do by a whole 30%. Goes without saying, but the boons are invaluable to your survival. Of course, being a roguelike, when you die, you are sent right back to the beginning, losing all the abilities and effects you picked up. But with the right mentality, it's a minor setback, a slap on the wrist if you will, because I guarantee you, you'll be ready to go again immediately. It's also worth mentioning that Hades is so full of character as well, with every character being voiced and having their own distinct personality that would be befitting of their respective history. It's all fantastic stuff, and all the voice acting is credible too. The talent of these people is just something else, man. If I had to pick a favourite, probably Megira because of her interactions with Zagreus, given that they are apparently ex-lovers? I don't know, that kind of dynamic in this scenario is just really entertaining to me. Honestly, Hades is always a really hard game for me to put down, even if I do happen to be garbage at it. I think I've found a new favourite genre, and it's the roguelike one. Appropriate enough, too, because, assuming I'm not forgetting anything, Hades was actually the first roguelike I played. Yep, it's been in the back burner for a little while now, but now I've finally gotten the chance to talk about it, and I'm really happy I did. I strongly recommend Hades. Seriously, go play it. It's on Xbox Game Pass, which is how I've played the majority of the games in this series, so if cost is a worry to you, you at least have the opportunity to try it out for free right now. The only thing you'll be losing is time, but time is not wasted if you enjoyed that time, and you definitely will enjoy your time with Hades. 6 games this time around, more than the usual, huh? Well, thinking about it now, maybe I should have included only 5 games, including 6 when you say File 6, just to be funny. Oh well. No use crying over spilt milk. But as for New Save File 6, whenever I get round to it, let's just say I'm planning to go big for it. Oh, I don't mean in terms of the number of games, I mean the games I'll be including.